Hey everyone, welcome to Real Talk with Ellison, and I am Ellison. Listen, if you are watching on Facebook, please go ahead and hit that like button. If you are on YouTube, please subscribe and make sure you hit the bell when you know when Real Talk with Ellison is going live. And as you know, I say almost every week on this show, we deal with real life situations that impact the community as a whole. So, with that being said, we're about to get this show started. Hey, everybody, welcome to Real Talk with Ellison, and I am Ellison. Listen, before I bring on my beautiful co host and our guest, I want to say that this month is Domestic Violence Awareness as well as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, right? And we all have to do, especially as women, have to do our due diligence when it comes to breast cancer because in America there is 13% of women that will be impacted, which is 1 out of every 8 women will be impacted by breast cancer. The good thing is there's a 7 and an 8 chance that we won't be impacted, but we have to do our mammograms, and more importantly, we have to do our self breast examination, right? So whether it's in the shower or laying down, make sure you do your self examination on your breast, right? And unfortunately, we are going to say that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is really touching to my heart. And I want to say this there are 32 people a minute that is being affected by domestic violence of some sort. And that's not even including the women, I'm sorry, children, as well as elder abuse. So please educate yourself on the cues to identify if somebody is going through some things and also be aware of what the cycle of domestic violence is, right? But hey, listen, we're not going to keep it heavy today. We are going to talk about something different. So before I go any further, I want to welcome my beautiful co-host, Miss J. Garrett. Hey, welcome, Jaquita. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, how y'all
We're
doing?
doing well. How are you?
Fine, 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 fine.
And I also want to, I'm not going to call her no special guest because she almost like a sidekick, right? And we have none other than Brandy. Hey, Brandy. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, hey,
Hey,
ladies.
Brandy.
How are
Hey,
y'all?
ladies. Oh, my goodness. So,
Fine.
yeah, I was dropping some statistics about breast cancer and domestic violence, and I almost got choked up there on domestic violence. You know, this week has been kind of heavy because I've come in contact with several people that have been in a domestic violence situation. And, you know, it just was a little emotional for me. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we are talking about inequality and the impact it has on women, right?
Mhm.
As
Yes.
I was researching, it's so broad. So we're going to narrow it down to just a few. And I think it's important, right? It might not get a lot of views, it might not get a lot of likes, but hopefully you guys get educated on it because we are in a society where even in the 2000s, millennials, whatever you want to call it, women are not still considered as equal, right? And all of you, both of you ladies are in a workplace, and I don't know if you ever experienced anything like that or not, but it's real, right? So the
Right.
question is
Mhm.
this, right? Because if we're going to talk about inequality, what is it? And I think a lot of people don't, they basically think it has a lot to do with just just agenda or something like that, but
Mhm.
it's it's simply not being equal, right? It's simply not being equal, whether it's social status, whether it's your rights, and especially us being women, our rights, our income. But however, it's driven more than just that, right? It's determined on our gender, ages. You see people get discriminated against for their age, their gender, their origin, ethnicity, even disability, which is sad, their sexual orientation, their class, and even their religion. So inequality affects us across the board. So now you add all of that and being a woman to the equation.
Right.
Whew.
You do add all that to the equation, and you're right. I think it affects us on every level, every aspect for when it comes to a woman. Even though we're covering like the violence part of things and the like the not, us not receiving the proper pay. It's so
Mhm.
many things out here that we feel as women that we're not treated fair
Mhm. Mhm.
in the world today. With on my current job, I work with more women than I do men. This
Mhm.
particular job, but I have had it in the past, like working in a jail system and different things of that sort. But the pay is not equal.
Mhm. I think that was a good point. Brandy, what you got?
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in and say I just wanted to highlight the fact that this is something that just doesn't affect us here in America. This is a
Mhm.
global issue. And I feel as though when we speak on pay scale, if you look at it on a global issue, to your point, Kui, is that, you know, we don't get paid the same as men to do the same exact job. So to me, when we
Mhm.
talk about inequality, I think if whoever is doing the job, if it's a man, a woman, whoever is doing the job, we should all be paid the same for the same
Right.
amount of work. And unfortunately, that is something that is not just happening here in the US, but it happens in the globe. And there's
Mhm.
numbers to prove it. And I'll just throw out an estimate that generally women make 30 cents less, 30 to 50 cents less for jobs globally on the lower to mid range, and
Mhm.
then as it gets higher, when the figures go up to six figure, then the gap even widens for the same job.
Mm.
So, and within the hundred thousands, between
Wow.
250,000 for a woman, a man will make 400,000. So
Mhm.
the margin widens, and I think that's an issue. Um, what I'll say, I think a lot of that stems from how we are conditioned and how we're raised and groomed differently, and how women are sort of guided to be caregivers and servers, and men are the
Mhm.
protectors and the providers, and so they have different roles, and sometimes that can um, give you a less value role, because you're doing most of the caretaking and the domestic work, which is serving. And a
Right.
lot of the
So
time.
I'm glad that you brought that up because that is true. A lot of people, even in this time and even in America, feel that women, a lot of women place is, at home, or even if you are working, you still need to make sure you perform the duties of the kitchen and the cleaning and the kids and different things like that. But more and more women are standing up, for their place in society, which brings me to my first point, which is our legal rights and our protection, right? Our legal rights and our protection. And unless you living under a rock, you can tell that this year, especially with it being election year, is a lot on the line for women, right? And I'm not going to get all into that because that's not what it's about. But it's a lot on the line for women. And I'm going to say this, and it's more than just having their right to have an abortion or not. It's more than that, right? It's more about us losing control, because it hasn't been too long ago that we got the right to vote in the first place, right? But so many people, they lose space of what that was, and they don't look at the big picture. They focusing on one small issue of our legal rights and the protection of those rights. But
Right.
even as a woman, we should have those same rights, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I agree. I also too want to bring up too, not just in the aspect of like the workplace, it's so many other areas too. Like you said, you're not going to dig too deep into it, but I also noticed too, and I mean, they may be like, "Oh my God, why she said that?" But
Girl, just say it. It's real
I
talk.
even noticed in the ministry, like when it comes to religion in the pulpit, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like women are not necessarily saying they're dehumanized, but they're not treated as equal when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to them being in the pulpit. You know, when it comes to a lot of men, bishops, pastors, they may feel like, hey, a woman places on the first row. And I disagree with it. I think that we have the same equal opportunity as a man does. And like for
Mm-hmm.
some churches, when they come into a church and they see a woman in the pulpit, then they don't want to attend that church. I think it's wrong. I had a woman to marry me and my husband. He didn't have an issue with it. I didn't have an issue with it. But I notice it happens in the world of religion as well. So
Mm-hmm.
besides education, besides the workplace, it's all over, including in religion.
Yeah, I agree. What you got, Brandy? I
Um,
definitely
I,
agree.
I would like to say I agree with that, and also I think that has a lot to do with the traditions of what the expectation of women's roles are and what we're doing and what we're supposed to be doing, and men's roles are and what they're supposed to be doing. And I think it touches every area and every aspect when it comes to religious, the workplace, expectations. And I just think it hasn't, we haven't really evolved to understand that now that women have a different expectation, that we're doing some of the things like in the workforce equally as men, we should be paid the same. And then
Mm-hmm.
in addition, the roles that we play as far as being caretakers and servers and mothers and wives shouldn't be looked at less than, or those are some of the jobs that we don't get paid for that we do. So if anything, I
Now
feel
that's a
like,
good. That's good right
we're doing,
there.
yeah, we're doing roles where we should be getting paid equal. Actually, we should be getting paid more because we're doing things we're not getting paid for, just right there.
Yeah.
And they need to be respected, but I think some people are not in touch with what is required in order to deliver those unpaid serving things that we are
Right.
expected to do as women. And
Right.
I think that needs to change. I think
Yeah. I think
there
so
needs to
too.
be an awareness of that. So
Yeah. I want to piggyback off of what you said, Quita, because with the understanding that we we are our husband's equal. He is the head, and we have to understand that. So there is a place for us to be more submissive to the man and stuff, especially to the church. But I feel like sometimes we misrepresent represent
Mm-hmm.
ourselves as women
Mm-hmm.
because of how we present ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if you're, again, you got to be under the rock. You have some of these um pastors and prophets, women I'm talking about, that are dressing provocative. Like, that has no place
Yeah.
in the church, that has no place in the pulpit,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you present yourself like that,
Mm-hmm.
then it's almost, what is the difference between the world and the church? And you can't really see it. Now, if you
Mm-hmm.
have a woman preaching a gospel, because the word tells us that in the last days, I'm gonna pour out my spirit on all flesh, right?
Right.
On all flesh, the women, the
Right.
daughters, everybody, we all are to preach the gospel. So
Right.
we have to just make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to do, regardless if it's the church, the workplace, and society, as a woman, to
Mm-hmm.
earn this respect, right?
Correct. Correct.
Because, and Brandy, you have brought this up about other countries, and not all countries respect or have laws that protect the woman,
that's right.
right?
Right.
So in some of them countries that don't have that, it affects their ability to make decisions, right,
Hmm.
about how they live and about how, what they do with their own body. And I say this, right? I'm not saying if I'm for or against abortion or not. I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
that that is a person's choice,
Yep.
and even God gives us the choice, and he's the one that's got to judge them at the end of the day. So
Right.
whatever a person, chooses to do, we have to answer to God. Our bodies shouldn't come under a
Scrutiny.
legal
Mhm.
binding, so to speak, so that
Mhm.
now I don't have control
Over my
over
body.
my body. And I'm going to
Mhm.
ask you ladies this. Did you see where the man's girlfriend didn't want to have the baby, so she went to go to another state to have an abortion, and he went to the court and filed where she could not leave the state and she could not have it.
No.
Outside of the abortion, the mere fact is that you have a right over my body.
Hmm. Yeah,
You
Yeah,
know what
that's
I'm
I
saying?
mean,
So how do we as women stand up and say, "Hey, I demand, right, equal pay. I demand the same legal rights and the same protection as the men." Who wants to jump on that?
well, I want to make a comment too. I want to address two things, and then I can circle back to that one. The first thing I wanted to mention was about when you said about in the church, real quick. Sometimes I think is misleading because if you're not really understanding the understanding between a man and woman, and that we're valued the same, we're equal but we're different. It doesn't mean that I'm lesser than you because I'm being submissive to you. It's actually we're being submissive to each other. And I think sometimes that can be misleading. And then the other thing is about having control. Usually sometimes what happens is the person who has the most money in the household, which is usually if you are married and the man makes more money than you, sometimes it can be that they're the ones that makes the decisions and has the control over how things are operating, and you don't have so much of a voice. I think what needs to change is more women need to speak up, and we need to pull together to make sure that we can unify and get in the ears of the people who can make those changes and really rally behind them, so that way they can help make legislation change so that we can level the playing field
Mhm.
and be recognized, not just individually in some pockets, because this isn't everybody's situation. There
Right.
are some situations where people do have the fairness, and there are some women who do make more money than men, but on a whole, I think we need to be able to stand up for each other, whether this is your
Right.
circumstance or not.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. What you got, Quita?
Well, I guess for me, what I still have, I'm thinking of all the inequalities that we do face. Prime example, what it was on my brain was the election, how we have Harris, and Harris is up against Trump. And I remember a few years ago when we had Hillary Clinton, and she was running. And all I would hear is, "Oh, the United States not ready for a female president. They're not ready for a female president." Why is that? Even back then, I felt like, why? It's all politics, right? But why?
Mhm.
Why is the world not ready for a female president? Because behind every successful man is a great woman, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that part in itself too reminds me of the inequalities that we face, and we're back up against it again. So it's kind of like, okay, the way we're looking at it, will people vote to still have Trump in because they feel like they're really not ready for a woman, but they really don't want
Mm.
Trump either. But hey, we
Mhm.
Well,
just gonna vote for Trump because the world
I,
not ready for a woman.
I want to jump on that real quick because this is the thing why I keep saying old traditions die hard,
Hmm.
because in the old days, right, and
Hmm.
the way women are spoken about as the weaker, the
Yep.
more emotional,
Hmm.
the more whatever the female gentleness or whatever those things are that they project lead, you know
Hmm.
what I mean? But that's not necessarily the case, because the women's roles have changed over time as far as
Hmm.
our presence in military, in corporate, in business entrepreneurship, in just so many strides in
Hmm.
politics, and I think it's unfair
Hmm.
to say that a woman that we're not ready for a woman president.
Hmm.
It's just the fact that it's always been men.
Hmm.
It's always been men, you right. And I think that was a really good point that you brought out because, Peter, what you saying that there's not, if you think about it, I'm running through my head, where are most of our political representations? Most of them are men,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are men, so we as women are underpresent, right?
Right.
We're not there. We're not present. We're not in the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
And like Brandy was saying, because of the emotions that they feel like women have, then let's not put them in, but let's put them in certain places.
Right.
Right? Let's just put
Mm-hmm.
them in certain places. But it now, if you look at DEI, you don't even have to have that, but that's a whole nother story. But
Right.
so we don't even have to have them in certain places anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
important to have women in these positions because we bring a different perspective,
Mm-hmm.
right? We bring a different perspective than men. Like how are men coming up with rights over a woman's body? How are
Right.
men coming up with what's conducive for a woman's lifestyle? How are men coming up with how women should approach things when they are women,
Right.
right? I mean, when they are men. So having a woman engaged, or having a woman somewhere, maybe president, or even as Kamala as vice president, it brings a different perspective. It brings a different approach to many different things like businesses and inclusiveness, because
Mm-hmm.
now it's not just a man's world,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not a man's world, but it's a our world thing. And a
Mm-hmm.
our world thing, man, I can go so many places with that. Whether it's a woman, a black woman, a white woman, an Asian woman, is a our world thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, they want to handpick the women that they feel that they can
Mm-hmm.
control,
Mm-hmm. I agree
right?
100%.
Ellison,
And
I
Mm-hmm.
was
that's
gonna
again,
say,
that goes back to being inequality, because you're telling me that I can't have the right over my own mind and my own say.
Correct.
well, that's that old mentality, and we have to understand, like, and I just want to point out that things have changed and things are changing. There are
Mm-hmm.
more female representations in Congress, in office, and we noticed that, even when Biden was elected, that there was more women who were involved in diversity as far as ethnicity and culture and background. So I mean, that's hope for us, but
Mm-hmm.
I just tend to feel like old habits die hard. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that strategy of women being the caretakers and the servers and being less involved, it's
Mm-hmm.
taken a long time for things to
It's
balance
taking
out.
a long time because they won't get them old tail men up out of Congress. They dying in the chairs.
Listen,
Okay? That's why
that's
it's
a
taking a long time. We
listen.
got these 70, 80-year old men with these old mentalities in
Mm-hmm.
that chair, and they
Yeah.
die
Making
out. They
decisions.
don't get voted out. They die out. So this
That's
is
right.
why it's the way it is. But a woman's perspective can bring a difference to the democracy. It just
Right.
can,
Yeah.
Right.
right? And I don't feel like they are allowing that. Why? Again, I don't want to speak for all men because that's not the case, but because they don't value our input, or maybe they don't see us as the equal, or it is a control thing and no woman's going to tell me what to do. So even if I'm not telling you what to do but throwing out my suggestions, you're still not listening because I am a woman,
That's
Right.
right. Ellison,
right?
I wanna just tell you, I wanna point something out that you just came to mind too. If we think about all the campaigns, like kick like a girl, you know what I mean? When you think
Mm-hmm.
about those things, boys and men are taught that if you kick like a girl, then you're not tough, you're not, so you're not, in other words, being like a girl is less than being like a man. So we're taught that, being like a girl isn't as valued. And it
Mm-hmm.
teaches men, not to value us either in those ways.
Right.
There's some girls out there that know how to kick better than boys, but because that's a reference point, then we're not looked at equally, and that's
Mm-hmm.
taught
Correct.
Right. And
generationally.
I agree. So, again, with the political representation with CEOs of companies, and yes, we have come a long way, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
CEOs, there's judges, we have judges now, we have all of that, but it's still not enough,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, with that, how am I, as a young lady, right, a little girl, how do I look and say, I want to be that, right? I want to be that. What are my role models other than Susie, who's over there with the Daisy Dukes on, and twerking and all this other stuff? Like, what am my role model? What do I see as a woman, as a young lady, if I see nothing but men in the forefront of everything? And you're telling me that I can't achieve my dreams because I'm not a man? Like, what are we doing to our young girls if we are not representing as successful business owners? You know what I'm saying? I think
Hmm.
that's so important that we make sure we have this role model. But
Yes.
again, with these old men sitting on a seat, we're not ready for a woman president.
But
But
Change
I'm
but
not
gonna say,
coming.
God.
I'm gonna say this is where I think the gap is, and I think there needs to be more of it. First and foremost, unfortunately, a lot of the times us women and girls are geared to be the nurse, not the doctor. And I think for those women who do break the glass ceiling, I think it's really important for those that have broken the glass ceiling to look back, and that's where mentorship comes in, and that's where giving back comes in, and that's where we bridge the gap for women as a whole by reaching back and sharing your achievements, how you got there, and just encouraging women to know that they can be, and to encourage them and create programs that can help women empower themselves to not allow that to stigmatize them against being their best or
Right.
whatever it is that they want to do.
I just feel, anyway. Sweetie, you got something to say? I'm gonna hold that thought right there.
No, I agree with what Brandy said. I think we have to move forward on the forefront to be able to have, to be able to advocate for each other, to feel that we empowered, to feel like we have a voice. As long as we sit back in the shadows and allow ourselves to just sit on the sidelines, that's where we will remain. But as
Mhm.
you said, as long as we have the older people sitting in these chairs and they delegating and telling people where to go, what to do, change will not come. So until people push forward to have those individuals removed or they just die off, whatever the case may be, retire, whatever the case may be, it's going to stay like that. So at
Yeah.
some point, somebody has to put up a fight for things to change. So until then, this is where we will sit. This is where we will remain. And I was happy when we first received the first, black president. So at that point, it's like, okay, when can the women, stroll behind? So I'm looking
Yeah.
at it like, okay, we had our first black president, first and last black president, of course, so far, thus far, that has made history. So it's kind of like, okay, well, when's the next black president? If we can't have
Right.
the woman, then when the next man coming? So
Right.
either way, us sitting on this screen, we experience inequality for as female, as far as being black. There's so many inequalities that we're facing, period. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Um, but this is where I stand with it. Like I agree with you, as you said, as long as we sitting or they're sitting in that spot, they feel like we have a place and they don't feel like that's at the table.
Mhm.
Yeah. But you
I
know
feel
what though?
like if we don't continue to fight for us, we have to fight for us, and we have to use our voice, and we have to be loud with it, but we have to use wisdom. We have to be educated. We can't be out there fighting uneducated, being disruptive and causing violence. That's not the way. But we do have to use our voice and our platforms and whatever that looks like to educate other women to say, "Hey, I'm that woman and I have a right." Because if they're trying to overturn Wade, Roe versus Wade, right, which was just, I think, in the 70s, the early 70s, 73, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know. So they're trying to overturn that. If you think about it, black women was in the 60s to vote, white women was a few years before that to vote. So what's next? And I feel like because we're not paying attention, it's going to be the right to live free from violence, because you're telling me you have control over me and my body, the right from discrimination, the right from education. So because they're taking so much out, nobody's paying attention, but they're removing certain books from schools. So now we're not educated in some things anymore. You're telling me I can't own property because I'm a woman, right? A matter of fact, I'm going out there to try to buy a car, and because I'm a woman, you're going to sit up there and try to oversell me or just get over on me. So it's a lot of different things as a woman. If we don't stand up and have those rights to protect us, we're going to be lost.
Yeah. You know what? I was thinking as you're talking, and I think about how the old installation of what um, our democracy looks like and how that's set up. I think it needs to be more representative of what America, as far as a people, looks like. I mean, as far as diversity, culture, there should be a better balance. There should be more women representation. I mean, if we had a real reflection of the people who sat in Congress that made these decisions, and in the Senate and so forth, that represented women, represented diversity, more balance, and not such a bias of all men, then maybe we might have a difference of, like you said, bringing different ideas to the table from a female's perspective and having things installed that really represent and serve the people and serve women as, equals, and giving them the fair rights and earnings that they deserve.
Mhm.
As
Yeah.
long as we have a biased population in our political culture, it's gonna be one-sided because
Mhm.
unfortunately they're making rules that they think work and they're not even living the experience. So
Right.
mhm.
It's rules that works for them and certain cultures, right? And with us bringing all of this up about making sure that we have the same equality as everyone else, even when it comes to Jaquita, you bringing out the black, Kamala Harris. A lot of people think, okay, I need to vote for the president. You know what's important? Voting for the ones in your city council, your state. It's those
Yes.
representatives, because those are the ones who are going to fight for or against the president. So
Yeah.
when we don't vote for
Right.
all of those and the same people, like,
Mhm.
Local
hold my
councilmen and so
tongue, like
forth.
them, some of them folks that have been sitting on that chair forever, right? We constantly get, it's like, well, what did this president do and what did that president do? Well, they couldn't do much because they were fought the whole time because they had this, Congress, and who wins the House. So how many of those are women? Again,
Exactly.
how many of those are representation of a woman, right?
Right.
Let's go a little further. How many of them are women of different cultures or different ethnicities, right? It's almost as if the women that I do see in there that doesn't look like they have fair skin and blonde or brunette hair are being talked about for whether their culture, talked about for where they're located from or born from. I feel like they are only in the limelight because they are being discriminated against for some reason or another. And that's just me looking at the news,
Well,
right?
there's definitely not enough female representation, or if you want to just call it other gender representation, that are sitting in the seats of power to make those decisions, whether it be a local Congress or your local state, whatever it is, your mayor's office. All of those areas need to be more diversified with people who look like all of us.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Anyway, I didn't think this topic was going to make me so a little annoyed.
But
But
wait, you
I
would.
feel like it's making me a little annoyed, right?
But
And
wait.
and I say that because I have experienced some things. I remember I was with one of my clients, and we were um this is when, well, I still have Ellison's events, but this is with my event planning business. And she was a Caucasian lady, and we went to the venue, and the person immediately put her hand out to my client and was like, "Oh, hi, Ellison," because what's my name? You can't tell what I am, right? So my client looked at the lady, and she looked at me, and she was like, "That's Ellison," and I don't want to see your venue. And to me, I was so proud because one, the Lord held my whole tongue, but the other lady, the Caucasian lady, was like, "No, no, that's Ellison, and I don't even want to be a part of this venue if that's how you roll." Right? So,
No
being in
assumption.
that and even owning my own, private practice and counseling now, I see the looks sometimes when I come from the back room and I look like this.
Mhm. Yep, definitely.
So again, with being inequality also affects us as the monies that we get for different things too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does. It
Yeah, it
affects it.
just really does all the way around the board.
Yep.
Peter, what you got?
Well, for me, still today though, being in the work world and experiencing the things that we experience as women, I still feel like we have been deprived. We have fallen short. Oh, look how cute you look, good babe, beautiful babe. Um, but I just feel like we end up still having a short end of the stick when it comes down to trickle time, when it trickles down. So I'll tell you, there's this market analysis that's going around with the different companies dealing with mental health, and I feel as though when you climb to the top of the chain, there's always somebody at the top of the tiers, like the pyramid, right? So as you're moving through it, you feel like, oh, I have a workplace full of women, one man full of women. But the more you go up to the tier and you meet new people, you come to find out that the man sitting at the top, the person sitting at the top of the tier is a man.
That's right.
And so
That's
they're
true.
making all this money, and you're saying, hey, well, what about us? What about us down here who making sure these clients have what they need? And you go to feeling like you're not worth. They feel that you're not worth what you bring to the table, but you know better. So right now, that's just funny that we're talking about that and discussing it today because that's what we're facing right now at my job. It's a market analysis. And
Mhm.
so we're going through that situation right now. And not only that, I'm at a job that has 12 women and one man.
Mm.
And even for him as the man, and I know we're covering women today, but a black man sitting at the bottom of the tier and them not knowing his worth is upsetting in itself.
Mhm.
So to be in that situation where we're going off what the market analysis is worth. Why are we so concerned with what the market analysis is worth? What is our work? Do you know our work? Do you know the work that we put forth? Is what is that question? Is what the question is at hand. So that's my take on it. When we covering this topic, is inequality all
Yeah,
around
it
the
is.
board,
It
definitely
is.
for women. And it's a fight. And to be honest, it's kind of like we're gonna be in this fight for a long time, you
Yeah,
know.
when we sit around the round table, nobody come. The only time we see some of these politicians come is when it's time for election. But
Mhm.
nobody comes down to the ones that's on the so-called bottom, right?
Yep.
The other day I gave this young lady who worked at Walmart a pep talk. She was like, "Well, I'm feeling depressed. I work at Walmart." I said, "Honey, when there was COVID, what CEO was sitting in his building, but they were coming to Walmart. So don't just say I work at Walmart. Value what you do because just because other people don't value you, if it wasn't for the yous, if it wasn't for the Walmart maker workers, then we wouldn't have had stuff during COVID. Right. If it wasn't for the Target workers, if it wasn't for all of them, the Costco workers that everybody's looking down upon, then where would we have been? Because somebody had to go out there, right, and stock the shelves. If it wasn't for the truck drivers, all the ones that are
First
not
responders.
considered on the top tier,
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
right? And
Yep.
even truck drivers, when it comes to women, there are women too. There are women truck drivers that's not getting treated the same, that's not getting paid the same, right? So we have to make sure that we are using our voice and know who we are, regardless if you're working in Walmart or if you got your own business. Know your worth, right? And we're talking about women, but even as a man, know your worth, right? Know your worth because the Walmart might just be the stepping stone to where you need to be, right?
I
So we
agree.
had a comment
Mhm.
and it says that there needs to be more women that more adequately represent the population of the country and even other ethnicities. That's right. Our country prides
Yes.
itself on being a melting pot, but most leaders are one flavor. And that's what the problem is. Not only are they one flavor in gender, but also in race and social status even, right? Because again,
Mm-hmm.
we are inequality in social status. We
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure we all about the status quo,
Mm-hmm.
right? But with the status quo, where's the woman?
Where's
Where is the woman? Why do we have to pretty little show the pretty little trophy on a
Yep.
sidearm?
mm-hmm.
Yep.
Are we not better than that? Do we
Right.
not see ourselves as more than that?
Right.
Right? But this
Mm-hmm.
is where we, as the older generation, need to tell the younger generation stop your twerking, get off of social media, get your education, and represent yourself so you can be seen more than just property.
My voice matters.
Yeah.
It's true.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And
I
there's
got.
another thing too. I'm go ahead. Go ahead, Brandy.
I'm sorry. I got something to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that I wanted to just turn it upside down a little bit and look at it from a different perspective and say, okay, since we are hearing this message that we are not making the same money as doing the same job, that we are supposed to be submissive, that we're supposed to be sexy, that we're supposed to be controlled. I mean, how does that affect us as women feeling valued when we have to kind of um we, some women, we could be doing our best effort to do all these things, but you keep hearing this: you're not equal, you're not valued, stay in your place, and you're not being paid equally. That can affect us, mentally, emotionally. That can affect
Mm-hmm.
us in our health,
Mhm.
and just overall our self-esteem.
Mhm.
So, I just think that the effects of it can lead you in a path, if you're not really strong about it and you don't have that support system. It can lead you in a path of also agreeing with that. And
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and some women have to feel as though, okay, yeah, that is, they have to accept it, and they say, okay, I can never be like this because I've tried this many times and all I'm seeing is this. So that can affect women's self-esteem, and that's a big part of not being able to say, okay, well, I'm not going to accept being abused.
Mhm.
That takes you down that path of saying, well, I'm doing something wrong, and that's not the truth. But
Right.
it does bring women in that space to kind of look under the microscope, to kind of look at themselves also and say, well, maybe I am not equal.
Right.
Right.
I mean, that's a good point. What you got, Jay?
I agree with everything you say, and it makes a lot of sense. One of the things I said that, like you were talking about, Brandy, a few minutes ago when you said like us being able to advocate, women being able to come together. What I noticed too, having to see like my son go into high school, I'm noticing that um, they're actually encouraging when they make their classes and they putting the classes together for like the electives. I'm noticing they're putting more things out there for them, including the Black kids, like classes that's Quest for Success, helping them be able to communicate. One of the issues that I noticed that we face too, like you said, with the twerking and jerking, and we sitting around and we thinking it's cute. And if you want to twerk, if you want to jerk, that's just fine. But when you twerking and you jerking, make sure you got an education behind it as well. Live your life how you want to live it, do what you want to do, but at the same time, live within yourself and know your self-worth. Because it's a lot of times, like Ellison said too, you'll be surprised when she come out the room and she greet individuals and their faces like shocked to see what they see. So
Mhm.
I think a lot of times when we teaching our kids, get it sexy, you setting them up for so much failure. But for me, I'll give a prime example. If my son brings a girl home, I'm not knocking her for her color, her size, whatever the case may be. But I always tell my son, in the future, when you choose to bring a woman home, what is her character like? What is her mind like? Don't look at her because she got a big butt, big boobs. Let's just be real.
Right.
What does she bring to the table within her self-worth? If I see a girl walk through my door, I want to see power. I want to see a sense of strongness about herself, right? So when you see a girl walk in the room and she ducks her head, to me, it's lacking something. You know, like walk in the room, like people feel your presence, people see your presence. When I met Ellison, I saw it. I'm sure when y'all met me, you saw it. Brandy, when I met you, you could see it. It's the
Right.
whole, you know what I'm saying? So for me, it's kind of like we have to teach these young women,
Right.
young Black girls, what their self-worth is, how to be able to communicate. As
Right.
you said, if you can communicate and you can do it swiftly and you can
And
do it with
effectively.
respect and effectively, then you're going to be fine. And that's
Yes.
the problem that we're having today, because you see these girls saying, what I don't like is to see a female rapper
Oh,
to be able to come forward and you can rap that make this rhyme, and when you get on the mic you sound like, yeah girl, because he be playing with me. What is he be playing with me? Like, that's the kind of stuff that you pretty, people see you, but
right.
when you speak it all goes out the window. But for some
Right.
little girls they think it's cute, but for a woman like us, it's not cute. What I like
Right.
to see is a woman, if you want to say get it sexy, and she get on the mic and she speaks, and she speaks with intelligence.
She speaks with power. She speaks with
Mm-hmm.
control. She speaks. You know what I'm saying? I think
Self confidence.
Mm-hmm.
that's again,
Yeah, and
Identity,
getting
this
knowing who
sexy
you
topic is
ain't
gonna
are.
self.
get me so hot like it is.
Identity.
Getting sexy ain't
Yes.
self
So let me jump
confidence.
in because I got something to say. I got something to say about all that.
I
All
got
that.
something too. I got something too.
Brandy
Come on,
said,
hurry
Brandy
up.
pulled out about the self esteem, how it can hinder. Quita gave perfect examples of how that happens, right? That's how come we are affected in the workplace, right? You think of all of that. This is how come women are affected in the workplace as well, because of the
Yes.
mere fact of we don't have the self-esteem that we need to have. So we're okay with just being a secretary instead of
Mm-hmm.
being the one in the office, right? So this is why at the water cooler, the he little work harassment stuff is happening, because it's like almost as if I don't have a choice but to sleep my way to the top, and maybe the top is only outside of the president's office. You know what I'm saying? So we get into these situations where we don't have our self-esteem, we don't know our worth, we don't know the power of our body. Our body our body as a woman brings forth life. A man cannot do that on its own. So when
Without a
I
woman.
say to these young ladies, you are giving away a prize, you are giving away a prize, because
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing else than a woman that can bring forth this life, and you don't know who you are. It is important for us to know who we are, regardless of the culture or the ethnicity. We've got to know our worth and our right to our own body and our own mind. And I am worth more than your sexual jokes at the water cooler, your little rubs at the copy machine, getting your coffee. I'm worth more than that. I'm worth more than, if I'm going to be the rapper, I'm going to be the best rapper out there. I'm not going to sit up there, and I'm going to have my education, and I'm going to make sure I have my legal team, and I'm going to make sure I got my money in things that's going to make more money for me. But we don't teach all of us all of that, right? And
Yeah.
we're losing it. And this is another reason why the things that we chase are different than some of our other cultures. And this is again where the inequality comes from, right? We chase different things a little bit different, but again, all of this affects a woman's mental health. The job satisfaction. No, everybody's not satisfied with their job, but this is all I feel I can get because a man is telling me that. If it wasn't for a woman, that man who's telling you that wouldn't even be here.
Agreed.
Anyway, I just needed to say that. There's a comment. It says, unfortunately, women are objectified, but when a young lady presents herself a certain way, it shows, and she does not really value herself, or she values the wrong thing. And like you said, it's either two kind of women. The woman that walk in there and you know she don't have to open her mouth, but you know she
That's
knows that
me.
she got it going on and that she is in control and she don't need nobody to tell her. And then you got the other woman that walk in there like she is so lack of confidence, right? Self-esteem
No,
is
you
in the
got that one
pits
woman
and
who
she
walk
is
in there.
insecure.
She walk in there and she gorgeous and she beautiful, and she get to that mic and she broken. And guess
Mm-hmm.
what? I don't want to be that woman. None of us
That's
have to
right.
be that
I am
woman.
not that woman.
Nope.
Can I add something to this
Of
pot real
course.
quick? And then also let's think about this. I'm gonna bring it back to this because this is to me this is the root of it, the conditioning of how we are massaged to be who we are in society, and those old formats that globally have been that women are less than. Now, to just to correct it, we are equal, we are just different, right?
That's right.
We're equal, but we are just different. There's no greater. I mean, we work together. That's just really how it should be. But unfortunately, because we've been conditioned to feel that women should still stay in this box, and unfortunately, the women who do step out the box and who have been groomed and taught who they are and have been blessed to receive the mentorship to be able to push past that, then we are threatening.
Oh yeah, I've gotten that. Oh yeah,
Then you're a
it's
threat.
you're aggressive or
Yes.
you're yeah. It's not assertive. It's considered
Hmm.
aggressive.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
So
Hmm.
I wanna in talking about the gender inequality in a woman, I wanna address this comment where she says Lady D, she says you're right. She said Eve really messed us up. The curse is real. Well, yes, let me address that. I agree because Eve was the one that was manipulated by the serpent, right? So I do want to say that, right? However, when Eve ate of the fruit, right? Because there's nowhere in the scripture where it says an apple. When Eve ate of the fruit, nothing happened. It wasn't until the man, because he was the one that was given the instructions and the directions of what not to do. It wasn't until the man ate of the fruit that then their eyes was opened and they realized the wrong, right? And again, and I bring that out, and I'm glad she said it because yes, it's real. But again, you see the hard rap the woman gets. The
Oh
woman
yes.
gets the hard rap.
Let me get let me make you laugh. So since you brought that up about the apple, when
The fruit.
that means the fruit. I'm sorry. My son, I'm gonna say the apple because that's what he read when he read it in the kids' Bible. So we were giving him like teachings on the religious side of you know who God is all right. So we were
Yeah.
teaching him about the Bible. And so when we got to that part of the Bible, this boy, maybe about 5 years old, he read it and they showed the video of how they walked through it, and they said they were in the forest and there was no shame and they were naked, right? And so uh Eve took the fruit and she bit it. And then after that, that's when life changed and sin was brought into the world and we were gonna live forever and now we're gonna die, right? So look, my son comes running to me and said, it's all y'all fault.
Yeah, but you know what? And
He
that's so
said,
crazy because it's
the
the
woman
people
bit
think
the
that.
apple and now we all gonna die. I said, what?
Well, you tell my nephew. I'm sorry if he read that story,
He
but
don't
he
feel like
he
that
ain't
now, but
he ain't,
that
that
was
wasn't
when
the
he was
right that wasn't the right story.
baby. I
Eve was deceived. Eve was deceived. Eve was manipulated and all that other good stuff, right? Adam was. Yes, the Bible says Eve was deceived, but Adam was not. He knew what he was doing and he willfully sinned, right? But so many times Eve gets the bad rap,
oh
but
yeah.
she was deceived, right? So he's the one that willfully sinned. And
Mhm.
and I'm not gonna take the blame or suffer the consequences of nobody else's actions just
Right.
because I'm a woman. I'm just not. If
Right.
you going down, we going down together. How about that? So, and that goes right into the gender-based violence. Yes, domestic violence happens with men as well as children and everything else, but really is more women than not, and that's because of sexual assaults and different ways that people view a woman is how they will treat a
Yeah.
woman, right?
Mhm.
So, and all of this domestic violence affects women globally, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just with physical abuse. It's emotional abuse, it's the mental abuse, it's
Yep.
financial abuse,
Yep.
right? All of that is out of there, but so many times we're facing significant barriers, for even support.
Yep.
Right? Because only 1% of domestic violence cases are reported, because again, I don't really feel like, where's the support and where's the justice? They get right out. And guess what? You have a order of protection. Okay, well, good luck with that, because they come right back and they do it again, right? So where's the support? Where's the real help? And and being have worked at the domestic violence shelter, right? I see the struggle that these women who just was beat have to go in front of this man judge that don't even understand and get it, and don't get the help and the support that they need. So this is why some of them don't report, because here I am violated, and now I got to go in front of a man.
Yep.
Ellasin, I got something to say. I'm about to jump out my seat about this. Okay, so we can just take a very good look at Hollywood today.
Oh, yes, we can.
Yes, and think about all of the women
that was Diddy Bop
that have been put in a position to succumb to abuse, whether it be sexual, a lot of it is sexual, verbal, emotional, mental, financial, all the things that you spoke of, in order to get jobs. You gotta sleep your way to the top a lot of the times, or I mean, we could flip it to a whole nother,
like you do.
Yeah, right. We could flip it to a whole nother side as well, with other genders as well. But I know we're focusing on women. But women have been underneath this type of abuse for a long time in this particular area. And now with these new things that are coming up with the Survivors Act and, Me Too and so forth, those things are allowing the veil to be lifted off some of these areas where women have been put under this type of abuse because of them just being women, and because men are in power. And they use the power to control and to get what they want from the women. And women are left feeling like they have no other choice in some cases. And this is why, and it's because it's been so quiet and hush hush in the boys club, that it wasn't exposed. But exposure has come. And with that, I hope that, with those things being brought to light, there can be some real formative changes, not just in Hollywood, but in corporate and just across the board for women when it comes to the workplace, to not have to feel that they have to be sexual or sexy to be able to be successful.
I kind of got one real quick too, though, to kind of piggyback on that real quick, because I see Ellasin face. She like, oh yeah, I'm ready. I got to ooh. Your face been like that for the last 2 minutes. Just to let you know.
Sorry.
So I gotta just say this part. I'm like, okay. Prime example, right? Going back to the election, right? I'm looking at the world we in, right? Women. Now, when we're talking equality for women, we're talking no matter what race it is, black, white, black, white, Asian. It does not matter. Mexican, right? And I think about all the women that we have in the United States that can vote, right? Think about it. They have more women in the United States that can vote than men can possibly vote because of felonies and different things of that sort. But don't get me started on the felony, because how we can have a president that's a felon, right? But don't get me started.
Counts.
Right.
Please.
34 counts. So to bring it to really back in, because I was going to kind of going off subject. To think of all the women that we have in America and all the women that voted him in his position and looking to vote him back in the position again. But it's okay for our crotches to be grabbed.
Oh, please.
By
I
men.
was about to say that too.
You understand? So for me is, where's the ignorance in us with women? It's already inequality. That's inequality in itself, though. Because where does the respect come? And where does he respect us as women? There is no respect. So for me, I feel like if every woman could look at just that aspect, that in itself is enough to not press the button to vote for him.
But I want to
Brandy, y'all don't put me on pause.
Okay.
Okay, go.
Right? So that's where I was going to, because Brandy said jobs and all this other stuff, and I'm like, naturally, the biggest house, Right. Naturally, the biggest house that you could hold in power is the White House.
That's right.
So when we're talking about gender inequality,
Mhm.
and we have someone that's in the most powerful house in America
Yep.
talking about us as
Mhm.
if we were just play toys, as you said,
Trash.
grabbing them by the crotches and
Mhm.
whatever else they want to do, and how they talk in the boys club, because that
Mhm.
was the quote unquote what was said. That's how we talk in the locker room. That's how we talk
Mhm.
on the golf field.
Mhm.
However,
Mhm.
it's becoming more and more evident. So if you have that out there, how do I as a woman earn that respect, and
Right.
how do I as a man give you that respect when I have the person that's in the most powerful office in America, right, saying these things and showing me that it's okay to look at you as a sex object instead of a equal person who can help in our whole democracy, right? So
Mhm.
when we talk about gender and equality, these are the things. And us women, we don't stick up for one
Mhm.
another, but we keep holding on to the good old boys rule, because why? We are under the thumb of the control. That's just what
Mhm.
it is. We are under the thumbprint, under the control. Your voice don't matter. They
Yep.
But
tell us we have a voice,
Yep.
but when we use our voice, it's shut up.
Mhm.
I can I jump in on that? I want
Yep.
to say
Real quick, because
yes.
my cameraman keep telling me it's time,
It's
but
time.
he know
Okay,
I'm hot right
sorry,
now.
but this is just real quick. This is where I'm going to point back to the fact that some of us are agreeing with being that way. We are, some of us as women are agreeing to say, yes,
Hmm.
I am not. I've been conditioned to believe this because I was taught that. So I'm going to, whatever it takes, I'm going to agree that yes, I'm less so that I can be provided for by a man.
And I won't.
You understand? So there's a
Yep.
mixture there that, there's some swimming upstream and then there's some swimming downstream.
And
Mhm.
it's some
So
that
we
just
we
ain't
got to
doing
get on
nothing
the
but wading in the water.
we got to get on
And
the
having
same
their
page.
crotches grabbed.
Yeah, we got to get on the same page because people that are agreeing to allow someone to speak that way about women, if the woman is voting for someone who's doing that,
Yep.
they have an agenda and it's different than mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is.
That's it.
And I'm gonna say this. Queen, you got anything to say? Because I'm gonna say this
No, I'm good. I'm good on
because the
everything.
man behind the camera is telling me that my time is
Oh, it's up, but it didn't got good. Go ahead.
so I wanna say this, right? Sometimes even the things that we've gone through as women, from a younger age, whether it could be molestation, rape, some kind of abuse, things we've seen or whatever, we are almost conditioned to say that our body is nothing more but just a sex object. We learned that that's our body. Our body is used for that, right? And some of us don't know the power we have because we lost it. It got taken away. We gave it away at an early age, whatever the case may be, right? But I'm here to tell us women today, it don't matter if it was taken from you, if you gave it away at a young age or whatever it is, you have control over your body,
Yep.
right? You have a say, and should no man be able to tell you what to do with your body. And don't you ever feel like I am nothing worth more than just to be slept with, right? Because you have people out there giving their spouses to other people, sleep with this one so I can get this, sleep with that one. So no, know your worth, because every time you do that, you're taking a piece of you away, and all you are doing is really it's humiliating yourself and demoralizing yourself. It affects our self-esteem and everything else like that. So it is important for us as women to know our worth, right? Whether it is the social status, whether it is economically, whether it is ethnicity, all of that. We all matter. And I'm not just talking about the black women, but we
Mhm.
all matter. We
Mhm.
all matter, right?
Yep, we do.
And I'm going to leave y'all with this. We ain't going back.
No, we definitely ain't going back.
That's all I'm going to
That's
say.
right.
We ain't going back.
We need to have a show we ain't going back to.
Right. So listen, this was good. And like I said, on inequality of women is so much that could be talked about. I know by no means we're done. So I'm sure we're going to continue this. We'll talk offline about that more. But listen, guys, thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Jay, for all your input. Y'all see me. I was getting hot. Y'all tried to keep me quiet too long. I couldn't take it.
Ooh,
I was
she was
over here
like
about
this.
to jump
Ooh,
out my
ooh.
I was
This how she
I
was.
started itching. All right, you guys, hold on. Listen, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Real Talk with Ellasin. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the buttons, and hit the little bell and all that other stuff, and share this out, right? Because, woman, listen, you matter. You have a voice, and your voice matters, right? So walk in who you are and walk in whose you are, and whose you are is God's. You are God's daughter. That's who you belong to, not man, right? So thank you again for watching Real Talk with Ellison. I will see you guys next week Thursday at 7 p.m. live. God bless. Mwah.